Good morning there. Here it is, the book club. We are reading Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. This 2 weeks, we read pages 75 through 158. It's Evan Minard here. You want to introduce yourself?
I am Nick McCarthy.
Baby Joe.
And we'll just start out with the first chapter was Manage the Load. And page 76, when we are committed, when we are driven, when we want to win, self-discipline most often takes the form of getting up early, getting more work done. But sometimes the harder choice, the greater exercise is in restraint, is to rest. 79, yes, our work is important. Yes, we hustle. Yes, our drive is how we become successful. Our love of the game is what got us here. But without the ability to rein this in, we will not last. We don't just want to be fast and strong. We want to be fast for a long time. So what comes up for you guys on that?
I think our previous conversation about just weight cutting was a perfect example of this. I had to cut down to 202, and I was at like 208 before. But I didn't start cutting this week. I started cutting 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. So I only had to lose like 1 or 2 pounds per week.
Yeah.
And I didn't, because I feel like a lot of people start cutting weight the week of or like the day or two before, and they have to lose like 8 or 9 pounds in one day, and then they just feel awful during their competition because they just cut too much weight at once, and their body wasn't in the zone for it, I guess you could say. So I feel like that I'm literally managing my weight load as a consistent slow decline instead of a fast, sharp decline, which is more of a shock to your body than a slower decline would be. That's kind of what I was thinking about, because that's still kind of half in my mind from what we were just talking about.
Yeah, managing the load is like definitely interesting. I know you're probably going through it with an injury right now. It's like I feel like you can challenge yourself in whatever, a weight cut, an injury, preparing for competition, the anxiety of it all, but then being able to step back from that too and enjoy time with your family, or like enjoy a walk, as simple as that sounds. 10 minutes can change your whole day. One of my favorite things now is just going on a walk. That's how I would probably manage my load, is like, and sleep, obviously. Khabib was doing the interviews talking about how he trained so hard in the morning, he'd have to sleep during the day, and he'd train so hard at night, sleep, and then he's telling himself to go to sleep. He's not staying up scrolling TikTok or whatever, or playing a video game or drinking alcohol. It's like, that's a lot of discipline, man, because we like that dopamine. I like it just like I'm sure everybody likes it. So I think having the discipline to rest is like, resting is not doing any of that stuff. That's, you're working. So
there's
the hard part.
And there's ways you can still be engaged. Like, I come to the kids' class, I can, watch videos, I can come in and watch classes, there's ways you can stay engaged without physically being there and still being attached to like going towards the right direction, not
You're
feeling.
On the mat. Dan talks about that all the time. He talks about the mat sense.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's a great example of somebody that's like incredibly busy, as you know, but still makes time to get that mat sense, even with an injury, whatever. I really look up to that, and how you're coming to the kids, like, that's really important.
Well, the next one is just what you were talking about there, Joe. Sleep is an act of character. And it says, we say I'm not a morning person, but that is almost certainly because we have been an irresponsible and undisciplined evening person. The best way to master the morning is to have mastered it the night before. Just as anyone who has ever sleep trained an infant learns, sleep begets sleep. So too does discipline beget discipline.
It's a hard one.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
And I came from the fire department where we got woken up. When you're a shift worker and you get calls at night. So I'm like 6 months removed from that, but I'm actually
like PTSD.
I do. I have. Yeah. It's affected me, and I'm just now getting out of that.
How many years did you do that?
15 years.
Oh, wow.
That's
ingrained in you then.
Yeah, and so, but also just a sense of urgency. Like, the bells go off and you just got to go. It's like that energy versus like, okay, I'm going to creatively show up and how do I want to be and like create my schedule and like know that there's not going to be interruptions or because I have some control over that.
How does it affect you now? Like, what's like?
The sleep is like, I'm way more consistent. So like it took a day and it affected my sleep affects how you, everything, how you eat, your exercise, how you get along with your kids, how you get along with your wife.
Yeah.
If I was sleep deprived,
decision-making capabilities.
Well, they say 24 hours without sleep is like, being drunk.
I mean, it's the worst thing.
Yeah. So your cognitive ability, but that, that goes back to now I'm just way more consistent. Like I wake up early in the morning because my kids wake up and I just like to get up early with them before them. And I go to bed. I'm sleeping by 9 o'clock. That's why the night classes are hard for me because I can't really I
respect that.
It's just
you've got a schedule, got a routine, which is like that's a hard thing to do is a routine.
Yeah, what I've done for the whole kind of sleeping thing, what I've actually done pretty recently, because you know how the whole time just changed, going like backwards now or something. What I did was just simply keep my same schedule. Like because what is like 11 became 12 or 12 became 11 or whatever. I treated it as if that didn't happen, so it's still 12.
Yeah.
And because of that, I'm going to bed an hour early and waking up an hour early too.
Nice.
So it's pretty interesting. It's actually worked out pretty well because nothing has changed. I'm still doing the exact same thing. I just didn't take advantage of the 1 hour of extra sleep I could have gotten. I just moved my alarm back an hour. I moved going to sleep ahead an hour, I guess you could say. And it helped pretty well, actually. I'm waking up a lot earlier now. I'm waking up an hour earlier now.
Yeah.
And it's given me more time in the morning to just wake up. Like, once I'm actually out of bed, because I have pretty bad asthma, too, and it usually takes my lungs an extra 30 minutes to wake up compared to the rest of my body just so I can start breathing. And I've noticed this week that actually helped pretty good in these morning classes for the mat. Because I'm like, okay, my lungs are actually more awake and I'm more resistant to when like the doors open up. Because when that cold air kind of shocks me, it makes it hard to breathe. But now that my lungs are more awake and ready for
warmed
action,
up a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, they can kind of deal with that temperature change more. Yeah.
Nice. Hicks and Gracie style.
Oh yeah. So that's kind of how I'm managing my sleep, I guess you could say.
The next chapter, what can you endure? This was from FDR. Almost all great leaders, great athletes, great philosophers have been tough. They have been able to endure. That's what it takes. Sacrifices, pushing through frustrations, pushing through criticism and loneliness, pushing through pain. We will taste pain on this journey. That's a fact. We will be given a million opportunities to stop and a million reasons why that's okay. And that's very true with jiu-jitsu. It's very true with,
It's a very applicable one
yeah,
right here. Yeah.
entrepreneurship,
Everything.
with everything. Yeah. Diets, exercise. There's a million reasons to stop. And there's really one to keep going. It's because you have discipline and you want to keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're going to choose pain either way. Would you rather have the pain of the discipline to do what you really know you should be doing, or would you rather have the pain to look back when your business isn't where it wants to be, your health isn't where it wants to be, relationship, put whatever tag it is, and it's like either way you're going to have the pain. It's like you probably need to pick the first pain.
That's what in the coaching world they say, choose your hard.
Choose your hard. Yeah.
Choose your hard.
It's going to be hard.
Because it's going to be hard. Like whatever,
Yeah.
it's hard to be really in good shape, and it's hard to be really, really fat. It's like
I'd rather be in good shape.
Yeah, it's there's
gonna live longer.
Yeah.
Gonna be able to move better.
and
Feel better too.
yeah, it's just healthier, right? I for health reasons alone.
I've connected this a lot to practices because one of the things that really annoys me is when someone shows up to practice and doesn't try. Because like you already are 51% there by just showing up. You might as well try because now you're gonna go home and be like, I didn't do enough, and you're gonna ruin your mood even more because if you didn't go, at least
Confidence is gonna go down.
Yeah. So because like I feel like if you
Belief in yourself.
going home after a practice you didn't try, you're like, I got nothing out of that. Why did I even go? I feel like at that point it would have been better to just stay at home.
Then you question your own decision making.
Yeah.
Am I even capable of
Needs to be an
understanding
indecisive
what I
person.
need to be doing?
Yeah. This whole discipline thing actually happened to me with the weight. Every night I was like, should I just not bother?
Do what I should do?
Yeah. It's not even like should do it. It was like I weighed myself at night, and I don't know if you guys may not know, but the weight I have to be is 202. I think I actually said that earlier. Mm-hmm. But I weighed myself last night after everything at like 10:30 or 11 p.m. And I was like, I'm 203 right now.
Is this even worth it?
Am I even gonna make it? Should I bother continuing?
Yeah.
And I kept saying that. I'm like, I need to stop. I was like, I just took a swig of water. Like, I'm gonna lie down. And it may have not been the best idea, but I pulled out some really funny 60-second videos and just watched those to get my mind off of it before going to bed. Because I knew if I didn't take my mind off of it, I would not stop thinking about it. So I was like, I need to take my mind off this. I can get out of it.
And I'm sure you've had to make that decision with your rib too.
Yeah.
You know, there's probably been a lot of those moments.
Well, it's really interesting being like, okay, am I not being tough? Am I giving into into my weakness, like my mental part, or am I saying, okay, I'm having actual discipline now to like take the time off? As hard as that is, it's actually harder to like step away than it is to just come back in. It's like, well, I'm choosing to like give myself a little bit of a break. I have to do that, and then my body just told me I have to. So
it reminds me of like trying not to rely on strength in jiu-jitsu. It's like, okay, I know this is what I need to be doing. Can I do it? You know.
And I've hurt my ribs a couple times. So
ribs is a tough.
It is,
man. And it affects everything.
Everything. And one thing this time, I felt the pop, and I just was like, I'm done for the day.
Yeah,
and I got up.
Been down that road before.
And because I was telling Nick before, I was like, first time I heard it, I was like, oh, that was weird. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I just kept rolling and didn't really. And then like I paid for it. It was like a month of really hurting.
You lengthened the process.
Yeah.
So
discipline is like trusting yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
I really believe in that.
Knowing what you can endure is also knowing what you can't endure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
you have to be very familiar with that. That's why I think cutting weight is honestly, it's good to do every now and then because you start to learn what you can and can't endure.
Mm-hmm.
You get to test your limits, and it's like obviously there would be too much of that. Like some of these MMA guys that cut 30, 40 pounds 3-4 times a year, probably doing too much. That's going to affect you in a bad way.
I know.
But 5-10 pounds here and there, it's probably a good thing. You know, in the Bible they fasted and stuff like that.
And the sauna, it's a similar thing. It's like, is the cold plunge. It's like getting out of your comfort zone, knowing you can maintain discipline enough to like push through that first initial mental tough part.
You're going to feel it, yeah.
Yeah. And
it's hard every time. Every time I get in that thing, like it's tough, you know.
Yeah, this is
like it.
The next one's beyond the body. This matters not just physically, but also mentally and spiritually. Temperance in the body affects the mind, and just as much, intemperance and excess physically prevent the mind from working as it should. No one who is a slave to their urges or to sloth, no one without strength or good schedule can create a good life. And that is that rings very true, you know. For me at least, it's the temperance, the balance. We were talking about like the dichotomy of like the last book we read, the dichotomy of leadership, but like these counterbalancing things and knowing when you can apply one, when you can apply the other. Like there's a time to push super hard and there's a time to rein it back, you know? And that's why, you know, good trainers and stuff like that.
It's almost like a flow state, right?
Yeah. No, hopefully this thing's still recording.
It's so hard, man. But I mean, it's gonna be hard. It's like, okay, enjoy that hard. Like we're lucky just to be alive, honestly.
That is the truth right there. And if you can look at that as
we're born in America. Holy crap, you know?
Yeah. It's you can take rest without being slothful. You know, you can disengage mentally without like throwing the towel. Like you need to have, at least I do. I need to have other things outside of jiu-jitsu. You know, like going out in nature, going on bike rides, going on hikes, like you said, like so that everything it's in perspective.
Yeah,
for me.
Definitely, yeah.
It's kind of like how you mentioned earlier with Khabib, how he deliberately during the day took sleep and deliberately went to bed.
He took
at
it as
night.
like a thing,
Yeah.
like he's gonna add to his game.
He's like, I need this, otherwise I'm gonna start getting worse.
Yeah, yeah, it's a cool interview, and like taking the time to balance your life too, with like hanging out with the family or going on a hike or even doing something business wise. It's like that balance. I feel like makes us more complete.
Well, think about Khabib and the discipline and the self-awareness and the confidence he had to sleep. Because I guarantee you that a part of his head was like, you're being lazy.
Yeah,
and there's a part of people out there that are, there's going to be critics. You're going to make a decision and there's going to be people that will criticize you for that decision.
One way or the other.
Yeah, they're going to be like, oh, he's not pushing as hard as he should.
Yeah, look at the internet.
Yeah.
Imagine like everybody, you're going to have haters.
And he's just
Either
like,
way.
this is what I know to be what I need to do.
His confidence in himself, which I think you get through testing your limits.
Yeah.
You get more confident in yourself and your decision-making capability, I feel like.
This next one is ruling over yourself. This one was a cool chapter about Queen Elizabeth. I didn't know much about her.
Nothing about her.
Yeah, but
Queen Liz,
R.I.P.
shout out.
Temperament may be less charismatic, but it survives. It stabilizes. A weak mind must be constantly entertained and stimulated. A strong mind can occupy itself, and more important, be still and vigilant in moments that demand it. If things are going to stay the same, then things are going to have to change. I like that line right there. If things are going to stay the same, then things are going to have to change.
Yeah.
Meaning that there's always change, and if,
Yeah, that's crazy.
And we have to understand self-discipline is not keeping things exactly as they are with an iron grip. It's not resistance to any and everything, nor would much discipline be required in a world that always stayed the same. Temperance is also the ability to adjust, make good of any situation, to find the opportunity to grow and improve in any situation, and to be able to do this with equanimity and poise, even initiative and joy. Because what other choice do we have? The idea that you don't get to do everything you want, that some things are non-negotiable, that the flip side of privilege is duty, and that power must be complemented by restraint. Not everyone gets that. And their shameful behavior reminds us of the consequences. So, what comes up?
I thought of like positive mindset. Like I feel like there's a lot of people that are very negative. A lot of complaining, a lot of negativity. They're like always looking for blame of somebody else. Like this person did this to me today, and this pissed me off. And it's like having that positive mindset of like that there's something about enduring with joy. Like we're all going through pain, in so many areas of our life, and it's like if you can find joy in that, that's what that chapter kind of said, because you can either be cynical about it or you can be like a positive influence in the world about it. And it's really everything's pulling you to be cynical about it or blame other people or like,
I think that whole responsibility aspect is incredibly important to growing too. Because if I'm rolling with either two of you guys and I'm like, they beat me because they're stronger than me, I will never figure out.
Never grow.
I'll never grow because I never focus. Okay, they beat me because their pressure with their shoulder was just right there, so I need to make sure that moves.
How can I solve that problem?
Yeah. So I feel like when you always play the blame game, you can never look back.
There's no accountability.
Yeah, because if I was like, okay, this was my fault, I lost.
And
this.
accountability gives you power too. That's what
Makes you a better person.
Yeah, you basically give yourself power.
Keeps you humble too.
Yeah. And I feel like you become more powerful. That's what I feel like a lot of people don't realize is like the accountability saying it's my fault, like I did this wrong, that you actually just took back all the power right there. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's the psychology of like blaming other people it's so interesting because you think that you're sharing the blame or putting it on them, but really ultimately all you're doing is just being a victim and not creating any ability to change.
Yeah.
Because
give away everything out there.
Blaming someone is very narcissistic.
Yeah.
It's very narcissistic to like blame someone else. Like I can't do stuff wrong, so it had to be you'd be doing something wrong. Like it had to be, you beat me only because of your strength. You didn't beat me
And
because
it's
of
in
technique.
all of our nature
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
have that, which is so, it's like, why were we born with that?
Yeah.
And why do we have to overcome that?
Well, I like the saying that everything is a blessing or a lesson.
Yeah.
So, and
You win or you learn.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And so you can look at that as like win or learn. I mean, it's the exact same thing. It's like,
There's a book that was Conor McGregor's coach, Kavanaugh. He had that book. It was Win or Learn. And I just thought the title, I was like, I bought the book just because the title. I was
Yeah.
like, that's so interesting, you know?
yeah,
I mean, when it comes to, I kind of think of it as like a bridge when it comes to taking a responsibility. If you are always right or get it right the first time, your bridge has two supports, and yeah, sure, it works. But once two people walk on the bridge, now it's going to fall. But if you fail 10 times, now your bridge on the 11th try has 11 supports. So it stands up a lot more compared to, the weak
You
wall
gotta
bridge.
fail to succeed.
Yeah.
You know?
That's kind of how I view failing multiple times over again. It just makes your bridge stronger to walk across.
Yeah, it means action is the most important thing. Because if you're going to fail, you're going to succeed. But the more times you fail, it probably brings you closer to success.
Yeah. I do think the important part we kind of just assumed was when you do fail, you have to,
Yeah. You have to try
how do
to
I
get
fix
better.
this?
Yes.
How do I fix this? If you don't do that, then failing.
That takes
yeah.
discipline too.
That's for some people it's very hard. Some people it's very easy.
Yeah.
Some people who hate losing, it's easier for them because they're like, how do I fix this? Because I want to get better.
Mm-hmm.
But some people who may not have that extreme drive,
Yeah.
will probably have a harder time with that part of it.
Definitely.
I was like, man, I lost. I guess I just won't try next one because I think I might just be only a gym class goer and rolling in class.
Yeah.
But someone who, like Tristan, or honestly, even myself, I am an extremely competitive person. I hate losing with a burning passion.
Yes.
That if I go to this competition, I get like second, I'll be like, I am going to go to that competition next time, and I'm going to get first so hard that they're not going to know it's going to hit them.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's just how I work.
Yeah.
And I kind of like failing because I know I can figure out what to do wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of my mindset there. It's a little peek into my mind.
I think
Yeah.
we're very similar in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
that's the common theme through a lot of jiu-jitsu. You know?
We've got a lot of competitive
Yeah,
people.
and that's when it's in balance, when there's temperance, and
Yeah.
then you're sharpening each other, like the iron sharpens iron. Like that's
Yeah.
yeah. We're all getting better. That's the interesting thing. When you're rolling in a gym and you start, it's like, oh man, everyone's kind of the same. It's like you're starting to feel this, and then someone else comes in from outside, or a new person,
Cross-train or something
or you
like
cross
that.
train or
Yeah.
something. You're like, oh, I'm actually like feeling way more like I have gotten a lot better than what I used to be.
And it's important to do that too.
Yeah, to recognize how much you've grown.
To cross train and compete or whatever, go travel and train because. Yeah, I feel like when I do that consistently, I'm always better.
Yeah.
I'm always more aware of where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good thing.
That's actually one of the reasons I signed up for this competition because I feel like I've only trained here
Yeah.
and at Knox,
Which
So,
is great.
Yeah, it's great, but I
you
feel like
need
we've
need to spread the
learned
wings
each other
a little bit.
so much that
It's like a bird
Yeah.
breaking its wings.
I feel like just training at one gym, you also all are more or less growing at the same pace there, as long as you're kind of all consistent with each other.
Yeah.
So I feel like when I go over here to Nashville, I'll be like, okay, I can really see how much I've grown because these people I probably never trained with in my entire life before.
And they're legit jiu-jitsu. I mean, they train every day too.
Yeah.
So it's like you need to feel that.
The next one is look at everything like this. This was George Washington. We know that between every stimulus and its response, every piece of information in our decision, there is space. It is a brief space, to be sure, but one with room enough to insert our philosophy. Will we use it? Use it to think, use it to examine, use it to wait for information, or will we give it to our first impressions, to harmful instincts and to old patterns? The pause is everything. A leader can't make decisions on impulse. They must lead from somewhere more rational, more controlled than that. That's not to say that they won't ever be tempted, that they won't have impulses. It's that they are disciplined enough to not act on them. That's a good one. It's
It's so much I think, I don't know if this is the next chapter or something, but it reminds me of the woman who put her manuscript in in the shelf for a year before submitting it so that she could have time to stew and sit on it and slightly change it. Even though could technically be published today,
Yeah.
she waited an entire year to publish it. Was her name Martha?
I forget, but I think that's coming up. That's Wait for the Sweet Fruit, I believe.
That's what it was.
You were captain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I bet you have a lot of experience with this.
Yeah, so it's a learned skill for sure, taking that pause and just, I used to do it before I would get on the radio because, you're on a scene of a fire, your adrenaline's going, you might have woken up in the middle of the night. So, your head and you start seeing what's going on. You're like, just take a deep breath before you key up the mic because, everyone hears
people do it wrong,
everyone.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And you see the good ways and the wrong ways. And really just,
is it rushing it sometimes?
It's rushed. It's all scattered. You've trained like jiu-jitsu. You've trained in how to do that. So you just take a deep breath and you don't let the emotions, the adrenaline get you overworked. And then you just say what you need to say. And so, yeah, that pause was important. And it feels like an eternity. It does. Like when there's fire blowing out and there's people screaming at you and you're just like, take a deep breath. And it feels like forever, but it's really just a second. And it's almost unnoticeable to anyone outside.
Yeah.
And you just like, okay, calmly say what you need to say. Because, when you're calm, that's the thing about firefighting is you needed to be calm. You're the calm in the chaos. And so,
everybody's looking at you like,
looking
hey,
at you.
Are you going to solve this?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So,
Crazy, man.
and just being,
Immense pressure.
yeah, being comfortable with making decisions, your training, your crew, but taking that deep breath and being like, okay, I didn't create this issue. I don't want to make it worse.
I would imagine like the more you were in, the better you got at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting.
And
exposure, right?
Exposure and training and being humble and vulnerable. Like the people that did really well were the ones
Can't have an ego.
they can't have an ego. I never thought
it's so similar to jiu-jitsu. It's crazy. It's like all what we say in here.
Yeah. I just never thought I knew it all. I never thought that I was the best captain in the world, but I also recognized that like there was so much
But
to
you
learn.
had a competitive drive too to try to be the best. There's like a fine line right there, right? Because there's some guys like Gordon Ryan, for example. He's very, very confident everybody would say he's cocky, but he's also humble too. The guy's constantly learning. Mm-hmm. Isn't there like a weird line right there where it's like cockiness and humbleness is almost like you have to be very
two sides of the
and you have to have an ego to want to be the best. Because wanting to be the best at something, that's ego right there.
Yeah.
We all have it. We should have it. But then like balancing that ego with like actually learning every day, that's the hardest thing.
I feel like what it kind of sums up is, I want to be the best, but I'm not right now.
Yeah. That's
How
a
do I
good way
get
to put
there?
it. That's a very good way.
That's kind of.
And
how I
you'll
feel
never
about
be,
it. Yeah.
you're always like striving to be
Because
better.
the thing about
Change is constant.
Because that's what I think about. Like right now, I want to win.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said, I may as well make it second. How will I get first next time? That's kind of how I thought about it.
Yeah.
At least.
You got a good mindset.
And this all leads into the next thing, which is keep the main thing the main thing. So if the main thing is to be a good fire officer or the main thing is to be a good, jiu-jitsu player, the good thing, for me, it's being a family. Like that's my priority. It's like,
That's number one.
so everything else all helps with that though. Like it's like jiu-jitsu helps me be a better dad. I know that. So it's a part of my life. It's important. But keep the main thing the main thing. This is Booker T. Washington. The number of people who stand ready to consume one's time to no purpose, he said, is almost countless. If you don't know where you're sailing, the Stoic said, no wind is favorable. That was a good one too. Say no, own it. Be polite when you can, but own it. Because it's your life and because it's your power. By seizing it, you become powerful. No one can say yes to their destiny without saying no to what is clearly someone else's. No one can achieve their main thing without discipline to make it the main thing. And this is, goes back to the sleep discipline, goes back to the diet thing. It's like, hey, my friends are in town. Like, hey, let's go have a burger and a beer. And, I haven't seen you in forever. It's like, well, what's my main thing? And like, I want to be a good friend to you, but like, what's my main thing? My
That's
main
a
thing
hard
is this
one,
competition coming up, or this, whatever it is. And so,
That's a good example.
I feel like the internet. You just described the internet in general right there.
Yeah.
Because the internet is born, like social media is born to take your time.
yeah,
Like the whole reason for your TikTok algorithm or your YouTube algorithm is to keep you on the platform. They want to show you.
They're good at it too.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
very good at it. I have a hard time with it too.
I think everybody does.
absolutely.
I think every single human does.
I'll tell you one of my problems with it right now. My phone told me, because it gives me updates on every week on how much I use an app. You know how much I used YouTube last week?
How much?
18 and a half hours.
Yeah.
Just for my phone.
Yeah.
Doesn't include what I watched on my computer. So I was like, oh boy.
But I mean, the YouTube is it's cool that they give you the data, but that could be anything.
Yeah.
People in the, before the internet, they'd spend 3 hours on the phone. I remember my mom being on the phone for 3 hours straight.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, Mom,
My
get
mom
off
does
the
that
phone.
too.
Yeah.
And it's like, it could be anything. That's the crazy part. So making the main thing your thing, that's hard.
And saying no.
really
So
hard.
saying no is
Saying no is
because
hard.
we are trained to, like, at least I'm a people pleaser a lot of times too.
Yep.
And so, but being really clear about where you want to
What's your
go,
goals?
what your goals are, what's your mission, what's your direction, and then
There's
is that in
something really-
alignment or is it not?
Yeah, there's something really honorable about being in aligned with your goals. We all look up to it,
Yeah.
but it's not easy to achieve.
That's something I'm actually personally pretty bad at. I don't like saying no, and I think it's actually has affected my the mentality of not of not saying no has affected my jiu-jitsu, because I am when I am rolling with it, kind of goes back to what you said yesterday when my dad was saying, don't just give them the guard if they pulled on you. But I was I was
Clear with what your goal is.
and I always like, what, they got me, I'll just go down.
Yeah, kind of accept it.
And that's just always like how I've trained. It's just probably one of the biggest demerits to my game is that I just accept things, and I really should not accept it, because more than half the time I could have probably gotten out of it, but I was like, I'll just let them take
It's a
full guard
balance,
on me.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably need to go hard the other way and then find your way in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I find like I have to realize it's like I have to go hard one way and then find my way in the middle, because the answer is always in here somewhere.
Yeah.
It's never like there. It's right here.
Yep. This one's focus, 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 and this is Beethoven.
Beethoven.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out Beethoven.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to
Oh,
Beethoven.
yeah.
In a world of distraction, focusing is a superpower. No, if it's worth doing, it's worth concentrating on today. It's worth focusing on now. That was a short chapter, but it was.
It's a good one.
He would be having a conversation with somebody, and then he would just like daze off and be like in his mind thinking about his music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you think they're absent-minded, but he's like, no, I'm just focusing on what my mission is. Like my mission is to make amazing music,
That's
and
the
like
main thing.
yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't care if people think I'm being inconsiderate or disrespectful or whatever. It's like, who am I here to be?
Yeah.
And so it kind of
There's
goes back to
definitely
that
a
last
balance
one.
with that
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah.
It's something my dad does really well. And
He does.
it's something my dad does really well, because like I've noticed it because of a lot of the small things. Because like I'm on the phone, sometimes I'm on the phone with him talking, because I call him or he calls me, and I'm like, okay, Dad, like I'm like blah 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 blah, and I'm like, hello, are you there still? He's like, I'm backing out, don't talk to me, or
Yeah.
like, I'm doing something that requires more attention than I can't talk right now. Or if it's like, 1 second, this person's driving like an idiot. I need to focus
Concentrate.
on it.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 second, I'm parallel parking. 1 second, I'm backing out. I need to make sure. And he's like, do not talk to me, and I'll tell you when I'm done. You can talk to me again.
And be re-engaged,
Yeah.
which is like
Yes.
a respectful
he
way.
goes right back into the conversation. And I always think, like, if he is this disciplined about just backing out, what else is he that disciplined about too? Because I'm sure he is. It's not just backing out or pulling on the cars. It's
Business,
It's everything.
relationships,
It's everything. And I was like, that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Shout out to my dad.
shout out to
Shout out Dan.
Dan.
Shout out Beethoven. Shout out Dan.
This one is wait for the sweet fruit. I think this is what you were talking
Yeah,
about.
that's probably the book one.
And it says, but as Aristotle reminds us, patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. But that's the point. If things went exactly the way we wanted, if it didn't demand discomfort and sacrifice and patience to endure it, then no discipline would be required and everyone would do it. Similar to how we've talked on other stuff too.
I mean, I think jiu-jitsu is a very, very good example of that. You didn't become a black belt in a day. You became in what, 12 years?
Yeah, it was like 10 years.
10 years?
10 years.
Yeah, like, and then
Long time.
I got my blue belt after like a year and a half, and I've been a blue belt for like 2.5, 3 years now. Like I'm still probably got, a year or two under my belt before I even think about going up, before I even get it. But I was like,
Patience.
patience is all
Like
about,
Methuselah.
yeah, because honestly, if you don't have patience, you can't do jiu-jitsu.
No,
you cannot do jiu-jitsu at all if you don't have patience. That's something I've learned, because I used to not be good at patience. I used to be very like, give it to me now, or I want it now. And that's
See it with kids a lot, right?
Oh,
That's what's fun about that kids class,
Yeah.
isn't it? Because everybody's so new, They're like 10 years old, 11 years old. And you're like, man, I remember that. I want this thing. I want it now.
and if you just reflect on the things in your life, and this is, everyone can do this, but like, what are the things that you value the most? The things
that took patience.
the things that were hard to achieve,
Yeah.
that you had to like make sacrifices for, that were that are challenging, and that's that you paid a price for. All the stuff you get for free is worthless. That we consider that worthless stuff, and so
It's funny, isn't it?
yeah,
something that everyone has isn't worth anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched the interview. I mean, we talk about TikTok bad, but I actually saw a pretty good interview on there. It was like 71-year-old. They go around and ask 70-year-olds, they're like, how do you feel? This one guy's like, I'm really sore every day. It's just funny.
Yeah.
But this one guy was like, man, he's like, I just think that I was in a rush a lot, and I think that everybody's in a rush. And he's like, now I look back and I'm like, why was I in a rush? It's interesting. But I guess you got to balance that with focusing on what your main thing is and your goal. That's the whole thing, is the balance, but definitely don't be in a rush.
That's one thing I know I'm working on a lot.
Enjoy it.
it's the journey.
Enjoy it
It's the
while it
journey,
lasts.
not the
Yeah.
destination. Like
Yeah.
that's the other thing. It's like, it's like, oh, we have this goal of being a black belt, right? As a
Yeah.
practitioner, but it's like,
Doesn't
really,
stop
that
there,
no,
yeah.
it doesn't stop there. So why?
'Cause
Like,
you want to be a black belt that sucks,
yeah.
and your friends are like, I could beat up that guy. Yeah.
But even like once you get there, you'll like the realization, the aha moment is like there's just still so much to go. Like I waited all this time to enjoy it. It's like no, I should enjoy it, and I do enjoy every role. Like every time I'm here, it's like that's where the beauty of it. When you can remember, like it's the journey that's the important part, not the destination. Because we can compare ourselves like, oh, I should be here, I should be there. I have a goal of being here at that point. It's like, no, I need to like enjoy right now. Like this is where it's at. Like,
I feel like jiu-jitsu is almost like the embodiment of it's the journey, because the journey is learning the new move. The journey is rolling 10,000 times to you. When you roll that 10,000 first time, you're like, oh, my body knows exactly what to do in this exact situation because I felt that exact move from someone and roll 623
Yeah.
and 7,021, whatever, and just your body understands where everything has came from, because I know when I feel like when I have ever gotten promoted it was always a
It's a weird
surprise,
feeling, right? Yeah.
because because I was always the person like, do I really deserve this? Do I really need to get this? And I think that's kind of for two reasons. I can do a lot of cross training,
Yeah.
so it's only my gym, and the people I was there were usually slightly better than me. So I never felt like I got better, but they were just getting better at the same rate as I was. So I never really realized that I was getting better.
And jiu-jitsu is just completely subjective too to the whoever's promoting you's discretion. So it's like, I don't know, and then you get it, and you're like, you know what? I have came a long way.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, the
Makes you
self-reflection
look
back and think.
part, right? Yeah.
Makes you really look back and think like,
Yeah.
why did they give this to me now?
Self-reflection, I think, is a good thing for sure.
Self-reflection is hard too.
and that's when we're go, do.
It's
It's like
hard
you
to
ha-
pull back.
You have to have the discipline to like make
Yeah.
moments of that reflection.
You're probably going through a big period of that. I can imagine after doing 15 years of
Yeah.
that and then pulling back, it's probably a crazy experience.
It is, particularly because it's like was my identity. Like
Yeah.
if you ask me who I was, I'd be like, I'm a fireman.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I don't say that. So it's
That's trippy, yeah.
it's
But very empowering, I'm sure, in a lot of ways.
it's a space of creativity where I can kind of like be who I want and show up how I want without like the baggage of saying because I say I'm a fireman, like that just comes with a preconceived. You have a picture of what that means.
Yeah.
So do you, right? And there's just like a template of like firefighter.
It's like,
So-
no, I'm just a human.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
This one rings really true to me here. This is perfectionism is a vice. As they say, another way to spell perfectionism is paralysis. We have to be brave enough to soldier on, to give it a shot, to take our turn, to step into the arena, even though we might well lose. We have to be strong enough to do this too. Perfect is not just the enemy of the good, as they say, but it's the enemy of everything that might come after. If you get stuck, your potential does too. This is why finishing is itself an achievement, an act of monumental discipline that must happen. And so, like, are you going to be perfect going to this tournament?
No.
No. But, like, you could say, I'm not perfect, I'm not ready, or you can just go out there and let the chips fall and say, I'm going to learn something, and there's
There's a lot of honor in that.
a lot of honor in that, yeah.
This is something I was not really good at because this is connected. Just let me explain it a little bit. I love Lord of the Rings. I love fantasy, and I was like, I want to write a book like this. But what I ended up doing was, I spent so much time trying to make background history that I never even started writing the story. I literally spent like 60 hours just making background, like various races, various like geographical locations. I was so focused on making the perfect background that I actually never even started writing the story.
Yeah.
And I realized at that point I was like, "This is awesome! I have so much stuff." And then I sat down. And I'm like, I haven't even written the story yet. And I'm like, am I ever gonna get there? And that kind of made me realize that I was trying to make such a perfect world that I could never even get to going around to making an actual story.
That's a good story. I feel like I've definitely had something similar
Yeah.
to that. I think when I was younger, like I remember I was like, I'm going to document my journey doing jiu-jitsu, YouTube. I'm going to do the whole thing. And I wanted it to be perfect. I got like the right stuff that I needed, and I just didn't do it,
Oh.
Wanted it to be too perfect. It's like being on a diet, and you're like, if I miss one meal, and then you just don't do it.
Yep.
Well,
goodness.
this book club, even these
Yeah.
these audios, it's like such a big part of me is like I don't want to put anything out there if it's not perfect. Like I don't even want to record it because there's imperfections in like us having there's things we
speaking, yeah.
and it's like
But
it's
that's,
like well
the
screw
vulnerability
it. Yeah.
is the best part.
And it's showing up to it. It's like I don't know if anyone's going to find any value in this, but this is for us. Like and it's putting out this energy. That's really what I'm
That's
trying.
what it is,
It's this
yeah.
energy of like, hey, we all struggle with this.
Every single
person
human.
just
Yeah.
struggles with discipline. And how do you overcome that? Well, I feel like it's better to talk about it,
Be
and
aware of it.
and bring it up and
I definitely made the same kind of similar thing to you because I made a YouTube channel about one of the games I play. As you guys know, I play two gaming games. If you listen to this podcast more than once, you hear me talk about games all the time.
Yeah.
But I was a very perfectionist when making it. The videos at first it wasn't that bad because when you first start playing, there's so much new stuff. But later on the line, there was a lot more stuff I had to do, and instead of I realized at the beginning I was only spending maybe an hour or two on each video, but by the time I got to the 30th video in the series, I was spending 14 or 15 hours like a day on a single video, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. This is putting too much. This is because I wanted to make the video so good and so perfect that I was like, I was setting my expectations for like if I had like 80 hours in one day, and I don't have 80 hours in one day. I have 24.
Yeah, the discipline.
well, we got about 9 minutes before class starts, so I'll just start reading these and we'll just kind of close it up with that. This one was from the book Do the Hard Thing First. A man must swallow a toad every morning if he wishes to be sure of finding nothing still more disgusting before the day is over. Do the hard thing first. I like this one. Just as days are made of mornings, lives are made of days. To procrastinate at any time, day or night, young or old. To push it until later is a loser's game. This was the boxer Floyd Patterson. Can you get back up? Losing. Yeah, this was good. He was a champion that was the first one to come back.
My trainer, he just died last year, boxed under Floyd Patterson.
Wow.
He has these mitts that I still have. They're like 50 years old. Wow. Yeah, Floyd Patterson's an OG, man.
Yeah. Losing is
Muhammad Ali. Sorry.
Yeah. Losing is not always up to us, but being a loser is. Being a quitter is. Saying, "Oh, what the hell? Does it even matter?" That's on us. This was the battle against pain. This was JFK, the chapter about him. While not every problem can be solved with fresh air and exercise, we must be very suspicious of anyone who tells us they can make our pain disappear without real work. We endure pain, but we also have to address the root causes of it. And so the battle against pleasure, as Musonius Rufus reminds us that by the standard of pleasure, nothing is more pleasant than self-control, and nothing is more painful than the lack of self-control. Seek yourself, not distraction. Be happy, not hedonistic. Let the mind rule, not the body. Conquer pleasure. Make yourself superior to pain. And then the last chapter was fight provocation. Remember always, as wrong as they are, as annoying as it is, it takes two for a real conflict to happen. As the Stoics said, when we are offended, when we fight, we are complicit. We have chosen to engage. We have traded self-control for self-indulgence. We've allowed our cooler head to turn hot, even though we know hot heads rarely make good decisions.
Yeah, it's a daily battle.
Yeah.
It's a moment-by-moment battle, basically. It's hard.
And I know for me, like if I'm rolling with someone and they're rolling hard, because I roll hard sometimes, and I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But if they sometimes if they engage hard, then I can feel it going up, and I'm like, I'm out of control because I'm letting that happen versus saying, okay, this is my level of intensity. I don't want to go past that level.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to be in control
Things ever.
of my intensity, not allowing someone else's opposite intensity to increase beyond where I want to be.
This is definitely something I've done a lot better recently, and I think you could probably comment on this too, is that when I notice myself going too hard, I start taking deep breaths.
Yeah, you have done this better.
To literally audibly hear myself calm down.
Yeah.
I'm not
Breathing's
just...
huge.
Yeah.
Hickson Grayson talks about that a lot.
Like, I literally, while rolling, and I know I've done this thing before, because I know you've mentioned it before, I'm literally there in a bad position, I just go...
It's the same thing you said earlier about when you make an announcement on the speaker.
Yep.
Which is interesting. Breathing. Same thing in the cold tub.
Oh yeah.
That's why I love the cold tub. I'm like trying to get everybody to do the cold tub. I'm like, it's to change your life. Yeah.
Cold tub freaks me out, but I've done it before.
Change it, dude. You practice that.
Because it's...
I've never done anything where instantly you can practice it. Yeah.
Well, and it's
instantly.
It's instant return. Like you're like...
Yeah.
You realize that you have control over your body and your breathing as much as it's physically making it so hard.
Yeah,
like you get in, you're like, but then you're like, okay, take a deep breath. Anything else you guys want to add?
That was great.
I just realized I called myself out the entire time by being bad at stuff.
That's good. That's good.
That's
free.
That's
free.
Yeah. Well, and that's how we get better, right?
Yeah.
Is acknowledge, and also that you're not alone in these struggles.
Yeah.
It's easy to think, oh, am I the only crazy person that has this like going on in my head?
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Well, thank you, everyone. Have a blessed day.
See you guys next week.
Yep. And we'll be in 2 weeks from now. Take care.